Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the next session of our Idea to App with GitHub Spark series. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to review our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenter to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speaker for today. Ari, thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. Hello again, everyone. Ari Levigny, Senior Learning Advocate and Evangelist with GitHub. And welcome back for part 2 of our series here, where we're going to take an app that we built using Spark and hand it from the persona of a product manager over to the persona of a developer. And we'll see what we create, what we want to ask, what we want to work on as a developer, and see how that comes back into the app. So maybe the product manager, they can look at some of those changes and see if it meets the requirements of that product manager. So again, welcome Microsoft Reactor Series community. I love doing these. I get some great questions too along the way. So feel free as we go, if there's some questions or things that I'm pointing out that you would like to know more about, or I can help answer. Hopefully I can answer them all, but if not, I will try to post them as comments back to the YouTube and LinkedIn feeds afterwards. But as you can see here, we have this little error already in our app that we started last week, the Elevate Fit Tracker app that we created. That's okay. This is not really an error that is going to cause us a problem. It's more of probably a bug in Spark in the way of like building the app and then showing the results. So I've done several, try to fix all. We'll try one more time anyway. I don't mind doing that. And then get the little love doing this too with the sparkles as we're waiting. I can do that. But one other thing while that is working on possibly fixing our beautiful UI here for our app is that I did already actually create and while it's working on it, so it's going to keep popping back and forth. I did create a repository from this. That's actually the website that you can go to, and I'll copy and paste this app here again, so folks can take a look at that. That is the URL that is given to us from Spark. Again, we got that fix error. That's okay. We will go past that. But as you can see, it's really not affecting. It's really, I think, building it here in the Spark environment. That was where that's shown, because if we do a refresh on our app, the app works fine. We're able to do things with it. It's definitely a bug here, something with building that it's having trouble fixing. And maybe that's something we can work on too as we go through it in the IDE. So first off, I wanted to show that, yes, we did have our repo created here. Our settings are still the same. I didn't change anything else. But let's say now as a developer, I now want to work on this. So my product manager came with me with this polished, or I should say MVP or POC, however, whatever term you want to use there, of a first kind of iteration of a app that we need for working out, and has different aspects of it, like the leaderboard, picking an AI coach. So if we were to actually walk through the app, we could do that. The days you want to work out, what we're trying to do here. Maybe we're also increasing strength. And then maybe I'm an intermediate. I'm not advanced. I'm not a beginner. I'm right in the middle, in the sweet spot there. And then maybe the equipment that I have available to me and what kind of workout I want to do. And this is what we did all last session, which I think Spark did a really good job of capturing everything. And just to remind folks too, right? We started out with the prompt, and actually it's, let me just bring up that page. I think is just an easy way to show it. I'll put it right here on the screen for us to just take. So remember, when we started this from the product manager standpoint, we ended up coming down here and I copied this entire prompt just a markdown file. Talked about core features. I remember I took it from my friend Andre there that we did on day 3 of GitHub Universe, and he did an awesome job. I did, as I mentioned, add some tweaks. I also added an image last time that we started this, but this is where we started. And then we were able to create our app that has all of these contents in it today with our profile. I got my coach. I can select my target muscles. So let's say I went back to definitely want triceps. It's a big muscle there in the arm. And then also I want to work on my lower back too. I have some issues there. So I want to work on that, and I'll start a workout. No exercise. So we can add an exercise. Sure. We'll just do that for now. And I just wanted to kind of show, just remind people what the app looks like. Remember, we also kind of took an attempt at changing the picture here in the app, and I did that by uploading a different image. But here it took my profile from the app, and we saw that here in the data of the current user. This is where it kind of pulled that information from, pulled my avatar, and it got that from my app. So this way, as a product manager, you have a sample to show your developer of what that kind of looks like. You can share that link with them. And now let's get into the developer side of the house. So we have this repository. As you can see, it was generated from Spark here at the top. Let me know if anyone can't see this. I'm going to just make sure I have the chat up too. Okay, good. And we normal repo, but obviously created from a template. Spark probably, it puts its little magic here to a Spark initial SHA. These are some things. The other thing that we created as part of this, which I thought was really cool, and we'll show how we can maybe iterate on this. And last time we created this PRD, and we did iterate on this PRD live in Spark, not from the developer side, but we added a mermaid diagram of what's going on here in the app, and the kind of the different paths you can go down with the app, and a nice architecture overview. And then just gave us a good flow. And this is also something that we can not only hand off to our developer persona, but maybe marketing, maybe designer. They want to make this, they're not like, to them, maybe this UI is pretty ugly, and they may be right. I'm not going to argue that point. I'm not a designer of front end, so I'll leave that up to them to decide. But I think you get the gist there. So now that we have the app, I'm going to actually open. Now we can open up a Codespace like normally from the code here itself if we wanted to create a Codespace. But let's say from a developer standpoint, I didn't want to do that for some reason. So if I could create a Codespace here, would do it off the main branch, and I could have one ready to go. But I actually want to do what the app, and also as a product manager, maybe also I want to see what the developer is kind of getting set up. How are they doing their environment? What does the development environment even look like for me? So I'll open up a Codespace. That'll take a little minute to open up. I will also make that a little larger for folks. It's kind of small. But this is a VS Code IDE. It also tells us some stuff here about being a pre-built exploring and some messages here. You could see too, the repository, it says Spark template to start with. It looks like there were some changes. This is okay. This is just because of my account. But let's see what that did there. I'm actually going to not commit that change. I'm going to discard that so we can start clean. So now I'm a developer, and now I'm not only going to develop some code or add to this, but I'm going to do it with my trusty sidekick here, my peer programmer, Copilot, GitHub Copilot. I can pick models here. Oh, sorry about that. I can pick models here, manage models and things like that. It looks like too, if you see this running here on the extensions, that means it's still loading. So I'm going to give it a minute to just kind of finish loading up. This should actually come back. You can manage models and do things like that. But it should say, give me a choice of the model that I want to use. And I wanted to show this from the standpoint of, with Spark, we talked about premium requests. And in here too, in the IDE, you can tell when you're going to be using a premium request as part of your development from that persona. Obviously, we have access to these three right now. And I think when this is done loading, we should also have a plan mode here too. I am in VS Code stable mode. I normally use insiders, but for this, I switched to use just the, yeah, if you have any questions, please ask in the chat and I'll try to answer them for you guys. But yeah, I love questions. Hopefully I can answer them. Thank you for emphasizing that one. And let's see, we're still loading. So while we're doing that too, we could browse. Here's all the files that we see here. That's interesting that it actually did put my, so if you see here in our app, we don't have a dev container directory. This, see, it was actually created. I created this from a previous session, so I'm interested why it's actually showing that there. We're on the main branch. There are other branches that for iterations that were created too, so you can see that history here in the source control. I'm going to just pull that back. That is interesting that actually shows up there. Maybe it's because I had a previous chat. I wonder if we could see any history here. No, new chat today. Also, besides the GitHub Copilot chat that you have here in this window, we have this availability to kind of keep track of our different agents, whether we're using them on the CLI, they're cloud agents. There's Codex, the OpenAI Codex. There will be probably more here. And this refers to what we're working on. Obviously, we have no history here, but this talks about what we're working on in this actual Copilot chat window here. So now it defaulted to the model that I use. I don't know if that's a coincidence. It's the model that I use, or if it's that Spark uses 4.5 by default, so it brought that up. Either way, that's okay. But maybe I want to actually here, we could see some cool features of how many models. I probably have more than what you're seeing in your environment. And that just may be because of access to previews, and maybe you guys don't have access to previews. I don't know. But as you can see, like this one, probably you don't, but models that are coming. This shows too, these use up 0 premium requests. We have some, this uses a lot, 3 premium requests per shot. I'm defaulted here, so that's a 1, 1, 1 till we get to the last Codex mini model. And you can manage models too. You can add, let's see if we go here, we can enter our own key if we wanted to. So maybe we wanted to actually use our API key instead of using a Copilot. That would also help with not being charged for that premium request if you're using your own, bringing your own key. We added that feature. I'm not sure how long ago, but it was a cool feature, I think, to add for folks that already have accounts in either Anthropic or OpenAI or Google with Gemini and so on and so forth. So I'm going to select actually auto for what we're going to do here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm a developer. I came into my project and I kind of want to understand, all right, I was given this UI, I see the code, but I don't know all the ins and outs of it. So I'm going to say workspace, which refers to all of the files and that are in this complete workspace that I'm messing around here in this temporary code space. And why I say temporary is if you do leave this idle for a certain amount of time, I'm not sure what the time is, but I would say probably 5 to 10 minutes is where it's probably going to not only shut down, but it's going to delete itself. So you would lose any stuff that you start working on, which is why I kind of wanted to get into how a developer workflow probably would do this. Like maybe I want to kind of just fish around to begin with in the code space that was generated from our Spark app here. The other thing too is if you ever used Codespaces before, just to give some more background on that, you can go to /Codespaces and see all the ones that you have available. I have a couple that I've kept around of things that I'm working on. I like to clean them up though from time to time myself. But as you can see, the one that we create is not listed because it's a temporary code space just to kind of, I think, scope around or investigate. And maybe as a product manager, I don't want to get into using a code space. I just want to see it. And there's no tie to keep that around. So let's say Copilot, explain the technology stack this app is using and how it gets built. What our let's also say, as a sub note, summarize the requirements and features of this app. Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to cancel that. It's just because I didn't start my MCP servers, so I'll just close that out. But as you can see, it's still working. I also can probably have just skip as well. Would have probably helped. I didn't see that last time, so that's good to know. And I could obviously start MCP servers and set everything up, especially with context 7, you need a key, but we don't want to take time on that for now. That's not what this session's about. So it gives us a nice summary. It also gives us reference to certain documents that are in our repository. So let's start at the top of what it came back with. It's telling us the React framework we're using, the version of TypeScript, the bundler, the dev server that we're using, Tailwind, cascading style sheets and CSS variables, and it points to the file, and you can click that file and it will open it up. So developer can start to kind of like, how we all do when we come to a new project and kind of just browse. But based on what Copilot Chat is returning to us, there are specific pointed questions, and we can get that information without having to dig through or do searches in these files directly, and really kind of comes back to a nice condensed summary of the things that we asked for. And then we can always dig into them deeper as we walk through these files, whether it's the config for Tailwind, it's the TypeScript for the workout logger that we have. We want to look at that. It talks about how to build and run this. And maybe we'll create some stuff around that too, to kind of enable our app running locally, but we'll do some other things first. And then it gives a nice layout of a summary. What I asked for is the requirements and feature summary, and references to that. So if we want to know the coaches, we can get a nice link right to the description where we have our lovely icons that we have in our app. The PRD, this is just a cascading style sheet. These are just notes from the PRD. Also, certain components or modules will probably be called out. This is onboarding, talking about setting up the user and things like that. Let's also ask it, now that I kind of browsed around as a developer and I looked at some of the files, I've asked it some questions. Maybe I want to ask some more. We'll get there. But right now, what I want to do really, I know for myself, is given the technology stack that we're using with TypeScript and React and Vist as a builder and bundler, we probably want to set up a consistent development environment that we'd want to use. And not just us, but maybe we have a colleague, a peer that we want to share this with, and we want them having a consistent environment to set all this stuff up on. So let's say create me a dev container configuration to set up is consistent. Include, and obviously I know I'm a little bit more privy to this type of information. Some folks out there may not be, but I'm also going to say include any post create scripts and post start scripts. I normally, when I set up a lot of my projects, and let me just also, I tend to have a dev container config, especially when we develop our skills, which I talked about last time, the GitHub skills exercises that I shared with you folks yesterday. In fact, just as a reminder, I'll put that in if you guys want access to our skills. This is a great, you can go here, peruse through. There's a lot of Copilot ones. The one for Spark is there as well. So feel free to look at that when you have a moment. I highly recommend it. But when I do create these exercises and people are using a Codespace, and a lot of the ones that we have for exercises, some of them are very simple, so we don't need them. But a development environment like that is really important to set that up and it to be consistent. So I normally set up something that has a post create. So after that Codespace runs for the first time, it sets up certain specific things. In fact, what I'll do is I'll kick this off while I talk about it, so then we can get into it. And it may have some not only post create, but every time the Codespace starts from a stop standpoint, there may be certain things that need to be reset up. Maybe it's a database that has to be running, a service that has to be running in my local environment, or it could be just installing packages, which would be more of a post create of setting them up for the first time and then doesn't have to be touched. Obviously, we can always talk to Copilot about adjusting those scripts, maybe adding some of that information that we discovered in our development process back to those scripts as well. So everyone, again, is using a consistent, sanitized development environment. So obviously I had one created, so kind of ruined my surprise here, but you also could see that there's no real instructions here too. That's also what this calls out on that reference. And so let's come back to our chat. So if we wanted also for developers, we can see that not only did it create the dev container config, and this is what defines what our Codespace is and stuff, and I won't get into a lot of it. Oops, let me just go back to terminal. Is it also sets up like pulling a Docker image, what we're going to do, the size of the storage and the memory, and you may want to tweak that. That may be a little overkill in 4 CPUs. Having Git and GitHub CLI installed as features, extensions that we want to include. And obviously this is going to match up with the stack that we're developing, which would be TypeScript and React. But it also puts this nice little document together. Let me just close that. And it really talks about not only our tech stack here, the project structure. So someone onboarding to this could actually look at this from a developer standpoint and understand, okay, this is where everything is. Getting started, what are the prereqs, the initial setup. Obviously, this is more for documentation. Hopefully, we can use this config to create our own. So what I'm going to say is let's create a new branch and add our dev container. If I could type to that would be great. Dev container, setup config and environment. And I'll let that to T, but that's okay. So it's now running some commands for me. I could click allow all, but I'm going to check out this new dev container setup branch. It already exists, so that's fine. Let's just check it out then. This is because I already kind of did this beforehand. I was hoping I could clean it all out, but apparently I didn't, but that's okay. I think you get the idea of what we're doing here now that we have this branch created for us. And we can publish that branch. It looks like there hasn't been any changes to those files because I guess they got merged, but I don't see why they would be there. But I guess it took a refresh of that because if we go back to main, we'll see that there's no, these are all the fixed errors. Interesting. That's okay. Oh, there we go. Now it's creating those changes. Yeah, we'll keep that. There we go. That's what I was hoping it was going to do. Guess I just didn't wait long enough. Patience. Context and patience, folks. All right. So it's creating some changes for us to submit this. Making some updates to the scripts that are already there. As you can see there, it's making some changes. Again, we're still in this kind of temporary code space, I'll refer to it, that Spark created for us. That's why we have that Spark template. I'm assuming that temporary repo had my changes and kind of kept it around is why that happened. So that's something I learned today as well. And then also some extensions if you want to reload the window, but we don't have to do that. So we've made some changes. We ran through, we'll keep the file. We'll do a status. Noticing command interruption. Let's just skip this for now. Really, we just wanted to create the branch and add some of that. Okay, I see. That's what happened. Perfect. And it's just going to create a. So the other thing I like too about this, and as a developer, I think most would as well, is that it gives you a nice summary of the changes that were made afterwards. I think that's a little bit newer. It gave that to me by default without me even asking for it. But now it's talking about how it's, it runs on create, container based tools, the post start commands, that it's uses resolved paths, Spark toolchain stays intact, steps intact. It talks about these post create and on create tightened, and also error checking in the shell for error handling. And then we have our branch that we created. So test not run, config only changes. And we don't have to get into, we'll get into tests, but not through this right now. So I will add those changes. Those familiar with the VS Code IDE, this should look very familiar to you. Again, I am in the stable version. If I had to guess, let's see if we have, I know how to get it from my file. Oh, there it is. There's about. So we're in actually one of the latest releases of the stable version of VS Code. So again, if you wanted to know what kind of Codespace environment and what version you're in, you could check that as well. I'm going to use Copilot to create my commit message for me. And I'll publish that branch. As we come to our repo, you'll see automatically now in the last 2 seconds, I pushed up that change in the branch that we created. And now as a developer, I can start developing in my own environment. But I'll probably look at what was changed here. You can do a compare, but also wanted to show you too, in the branches here. It should show up in the view all branches, but since we're already on that branch, I'll do a compare. I'll use Copilot to generate me a summary. I'll request Copilot for a reviewer, sure. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's kind of cool. And we may or may not take Copilot's suggestions, and that's okay. Here's our change. Interesting. So we create our pull request. Got all our references. I'll wait a second for a review from Copilot. Why not? And then we'll get into some more of the development and what doing those changes is. As you can see in the app itself, that directory doesn't exist today. It's not here at all. So once we finish as a developer, and I want to share this with my other developers, this pull request, and we found some things here. Assess. So it's saying is referenced without being set or have a default value. So it made us, sure, I'll take that suggestion. And I think that was all that it had. So it's nice. You don't have to go through a bunch of different changes. And then we'll merge this. Now, as we showed here, now we have that new, we just check this in, it's in there. If we come back to our app, and I do a refresh. Interesting. Let's see if I refresh this way. Not seeing that. I would hope that I would see these changes in here. see if it's going to pull from us. Oh, yes, should be in main. All right. I'm also at this point, I kind of use this temporary code space. So I'm going to actually I'm just going to close it, not get rid of it. It'll get rid of it on its own. I'll close this. I'm also going to bring the app over here. I was hoping to see our changes shown here. What we'll do is I'm going to close the window completely, come back to Spark, and open that in a new tab. Interesting. Not seeing that here, but that's okay. If we go to the repo, though, obviously now I created that dev container environment with all the necessary changes that were needed. I'm going to open up the code space here. So I've decided now, instead of using that temporary code space, now I want to dig in deeper. I'm ready to start developing and making changes. So I'm going to create a code space here. Also, my fellow peers or developers can also do that as well. Let's see. So again, we'll wait for that code space to come up. I was hoping to see the .dev here. I wonder if we go back to the manual restore. Let's see. No changes. Here we go. So these versions were ignored. Yeah, sync from repository. Let's see. Really want to see the changes that we made there, but let's see what's coming up in our code space here. I'll also make that bigger again, a new code space window. Let's go to source. This was the image that we added last time too. So that's in there. Let's see what happens when we fix all. Unavailable. Still starting up the code space. We also probably will take time to set everything up and the image that we chose. The difference here too is you can see when we get to the code, once source control comes up and that's done, that it will not say Spark template anymore. It's not a temporary workspace or checked out repo. I don't know the magic behind there of how it syncs up with the repo. But essentially, when you have that temporary code space, it's and you make changes, it's going to push those changes up to the branches that you have. I think it just names it that. It's that simple, I think. Let's see if we get a cache clean. It's trying to fix that. We're building our code space already, so we don't need that. And as you can see too, all our files are there. We're all checked in the main. It's currently running in recovery mode. All right. So while this is coming up, unfortunately, that seemed to make an error. One thing too, luckily I created another version of this as well, but that's okay. We'll let that come up. Um, and what I can do also is while we're waiting on this app, uh, interesting. Okay, it's a broken byte installation. This typically happens. Yeah. So that may be something too, as a developer, I don't want to use that stack. Let's see if we got this. I'm going to do two things, wait for that to come up. But while that's coming up, not to delay us, I'm going to go back to that temporary code space. Looks like it kept a history around too, even though, and I think it kept it around because it wasn't deleted yet, and that's okay. While we're here, create, oh, go away. Close all these out. Choose a test framework and create some basic tests to verify the app. So also maybe as a developer, I may want to cancel that, sorry. I may want to, at this point, start writing some tests, use a test framework to validate that. So before I even start messing around with developing, I probably want to put some tests in place, use a framework, verify that the current code passes those tests, or maybe we can make some tweaks right off the bat, even before getting into some deep development. So this is an example of really doing that. We're going to load this V-test framework. Walk through, let Copilot self-heal and the agent mode self-heal here. Let's see if we got back here. We did get here. We could make changes here. Let's actually, since we have the environment, yeah. All right. So we're able to install the prereqs. We'll keep this file. I'm also going to try to tune up and put all these files in a new branch. I forgot to do that at the very beginning. Let's create a new branch to work on these changes and files. Oh, we're still rolling, so still doing its changes. That's okay. I'll just keep that prompt ready to go. I'm going to stop this for now. Actually, skip that. So I skipped kind of the running the test. I want to do this other step first, create the branch and get our stuff in there that we've been working on, or I should say Copilot's been working on with us. And this does also another great summary after the fact of the framework, why we chose it, super fast, like the reasons. So like if you want to know maybe sometimes the why, or I think this is also a great showcase of what GitHub Copilot does for you when you're kind of analyzing through a project, or why it's making certain choices and really justifying them. And you may decide like I really prefer this framework, and it will switch that around for you. You can even obviously in the prompting and the context you give can also provide that up front. And then it tells us how we can run the test. But first, let's do this. Coffee break while we wait. Oh, yep. There's no feature. Oh, there is features. Stepping through creating the structure for the branches or whatever, kind of validating that featured. So we'll say add. We should also see this up in here. There's our add test framework branch. We have the changes ready to go. I haven't, they're actually staged. And we can commit already with this command 2, I believe is what this is going to allow us to do. Sure, let's do that. Told us what it staged, what it did, the current branch. And if we look here, we did make those changes and commit them. We haven't obviously published this branch, so we could ask Copilot to do that, or we can click the nice little blue button here. And it's even prompted me because I have the pull request extension installed here. You know, I can open the pull request there, or I can come back to my repo. And again, as a developer, I did some quick changes, asked for a test framework. I didn't run any tests yet. So I don't think I'm gonna stick with this just yet. But what I will do is let's actually now get to the point of running those tests and see what we get before we create that pull request. Let's see our app. It looks like we finally fixed everything, which is nice. I still would like to see the sync up of the actual app here. This is my Sparks. That's okay. We'll get to that. So now I'm back in my temporary code space here. And I can also, obviously, with the dev container config that we created before, we could iterate on that and fix that. But I really rather get into these tests. So I'll say, now that we created a test, if you make a mistake 4 prompts back, can you backtrack to where things were and get Spark to forget about everything that came afterwards? You can, if you go to a restore point here, there's no way, I guess there's no way to like get rid of these, but you can restore to that point and then iterate from that point on. I think the other ones that were done in between there will exist in this timeline, but they will not be part of the app going forward. I think it's more just to keep track of that in case you want to restore, go back, go forward, or backward, forwards in between, I guess would be a way to say it. So I think that's why that, so that wouldn't be the case. I think that's what you're asking. If not, you can ask it again in a different way and hopefully I grok you, but I think that makes sense. And yeah, so now that we created a test, created test in a test framework, let's run this app. Let's run the tests for this app. And my terminal window's open. Okay, so that's pretty good. We had a total of even giving us feedback right here in the chat panel, which is pretty cool. And then obviously we passed, there's test files, there's 3 that passed. In those are actually 36 tests. Will Copilot remember all the steps after the restore point and use that to inform its decisions, or does it just remember everything up to the restore point? I don't think it will. I think Spark will use everything that's there as context, but I'm not sure if it will. Yeah, I would say if you go to a restore point, it has the context of whatever happened up until that point. The stuff that's in the middle, I don't think it's going to look at. It may though, because it is in that timeline and knows like we try to fix this error this time. I would say what leads me to say no is because as you saw when we did the fixed error, it was kind of going through the same steps and not changing that, almost not learning from that change in context of experiencing the same error. So that's why I say I think it keeps things up to a certain point, and maybe does not use that as part of the context when you're prompting it again. So that didn't fix that. So we do have one test failure, but you know, this does show we had Copilot, or as a developer, maybe you don't want to write the test, so you're handing that over to Copilot, like we're doing here. I think it made, and if we wanted to see the changes that were made, just so we can show that here. Yeah. So in case you wanted to see before just saying like I'm doing here, keep constantly to kind of fix this error. But if you wanted to see what's here, you can undo it here. You could go down to the other points or places that things were changed in this file. But I'll just keep, and I will run the test again. Obviously, I could probably debug and get into this even heavier and myself and look at what the test problem is. Let's also do that. Let's get more output from the test error. Let's see if I can also, let's make this a little bit, yeah. Maybe I'm just missing the output too. So after state, let's see what we get back. Looks like that was it. So now we have 4 test files, 37 tests, some different, if we want, and we got a nice test result here in the chat window as well with the data sets. Maybe as developer now, I'm good. Like, okay, we have a baseline. We know the basic functions of this app work. I have my changes, and obviously there was one change made here. We can actually kind of showed it already, but if you wanted to see the diff of what happened here, let me just bring this window down. We changed this to expect to screen to get by text. The content of 2 was removed, and then we just did it this way instead. Expect the tab to trigger, and added that to be clickable. And we added some information, some more verify initial state stuff here that was probably missing, and that's why we're hitting that one error. So a developer, again, can make my changes. I'll come up with a commit message, or I'll say I'll have Copilot come up with a commit message, which will be better than mine. And then I will sync. We created that branch. Let's go to our repo. Obviously, it's up here ready to compare. But if I wanted to see all the branches, here's the one that we're doing the dev container. So that was 19 minutes ago, and we just pushed up this branch. So again, connecting that code space, that temporary code space, and these changes are reflected here in our repo in a new branch. I'll do the compare. I'll have Copilot generate me a pull request. I'll add as a requester. Got about 10 minutes left, but I just kind of wanted to show that involvement of, you know, creating tests or a developer working on this project outside of what the product manager did in Spark. We can create the pull request, and I'm gonna merge them, not wait for Copilot, but Copilot will probably also respond, even though, and you can also revert this if we needed to. Let's go back to the main repo page. We have our tab open. We have our changes. If we wanted to switch back to our main branch, we can do that here. Obviously, we made the changes, so we'll get them down. Maybe that's also why we didn't sync them. And let me do a refresh here. So enhance a tab components, test for initial state and trigger behavior. It put the tests here. Oh, you could edit these live here in our source. Here now, these are the tests that we created. So they're here in our main. They actually showed up there. I think the dev container might be a bug there where that, because I had created it previously, and it seems like it's not showing up here. I would expect it to be listed here as well, even though it is a .dev container directory. This is our temporary Copilot space. Now let's add, let's change our coach icons to use superheroes. Seeing the pull requests. Got another test failure. Let's also go to the change our icons. Here's the changes we made. Not going to belabor the test. Oh, looks like we fixed it. And we'll keep those changes. And in this case, we will. Awesome. I did that right to main just to save on time since we have about 8 minutes left. So I wanted to, and as you can see here, automatically, without me even doing a refresh, I was able to add tests to this repo, create the repo, have it set up, work on it in a Codespace, make some changes. The dev container stuff, that was probably my fault, but we got around that. We worked on some more interesting things instead of just the dev environment, which would be consistent, but we also got to work on some adding tests using the test framework, choosing a test framework for us. We could also have been given more context and prompted it to pick a specific, test framework that we wanted to use. And in this case, I decided I don't want to use the kind of these GitHub icons or avatar emojis. I decided just to use, change them out with like little superheroes. So they have like these little different hairstyles and the different technical and saying what they are. And I changed that out in the app. And now as a product manager on the other end, I saw a developer make that change and make changes to my app directly. With about 7 minutes left, if there's any questions or something that you want to see beyond what I've shown, feel free. Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. So again, if you want to go to that gist that we put at the link, I'll copy and paste it again. Just if you want to know the prompt we started from, what we covered in our first session to really this session was more ad hoc and I think a little more interesting from a developer standpoint that you could look into making changes to that. Will Copilot remember? That's still the same question. Well, that's great. Let's see. This is our outline. That's the link that I just put in there. If you wanted to just kind of refresh on that, you create your own app. And this was so while we're in this code space that had some issues here, we could also work on that unless there's, I'm happy to also jump into a question if someone has one, but we can continue to work on that. It's pretty cool that we made the changes to our app. And if we go to the, I think the file, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's right here, the data TS file in the lib. Thought that was it. That's the test. And as you can see here too, just not showing the UI, but I wanted to verify with you folks that the code itself that you're using here in the app has changed. And maybe as a product manager, I want to change that to something else. So let's do that here. Let's change coach icons. What LM does GitHub Spark use for code generation, and can you configure which model to use? Okay, we did cover that last time, but that's a great question because maybe a lot of other folks also missed that. By default, if you come in here, I thought it was there. Used to be there. I know why. Just hold on one sec. I think if I go to my settings, I'm able to do it. Maybe not. All right. So by default, I'll say this. Last time I showed it, there was an option there, and maybe they have removed it since. I'll publish this change. But by default, we use Sonnet 4.5. If capacity is reached there when using the app, then we fall back to Sonnet 4. Those are the two models that are used today. That may change in the future. We may have what we have kind of in the VS Code IDE and the Codespace that we played around with. We may have option to use auto or maybe pick out other models, but today it is just default is Sonnet 4.5 until capacity is reached. So just keep that in mind. Also, yeah, if you wanted to visit our site again, we should see the changes here. Yep. And this is our live. So again, product manager, developer on the same page, working together to build an app and really giving that that product manager that ability and natural language to describe what they want in their app. We saw the huge prompt that I fed it, and it was able to create that app last session in about, I think it was like under 10 minutes. It's more like 7 minutes max, at least to have a starting point to work with. So we were able to do a lot there. I did not made more changes. But here, if we want to iterate, let's change the coach icons to NFL team icons. I think I bat fingered something. So let's see what it does now. Here I am as developer and product manager going back and forth on who we want to see as our mascot, or our coaches, I should say. Let's see what it comes up with. I'll replace these three coaches with NFL teams that have distinct personalities. Let's see if we get our chain. Boom. Wait. Okay, we have a football. It kind of did what I wanted. Yeah, but as you can see, it's changing them. Let's see if we can see what they look like in here a little bit close up. Still working, I guess. I know we have 2 minutes left, so we'll keep this running. Any other questions I can answer before we leave the session, happy to answer. I hope you take Spark for a spin, especially you folks who are non-developers. I think it's amazing what you can create for an app. But maybe you work at a company and you want to share those with developers and get a feel for. And here we go. We got Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if that's correct for Kansas City Chief. And then Detroit Lions. Obviously, I'm sure if we provided those icon images, we could swap that in and out, but we are at time. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining the session. I hope it was useful for you. Give your feedback. Let us know what other things you want to see from GitHub Copilot, the GitHub platform. I love doing these sessions. I love the questions we get. I love it to be interactive as much as possible. But again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your days. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find our survey link on the screen or in the chat, and we'll see you at the next one.